All right, so this is week 3 of our coaches roundtable. We're joined by Coach Sheridan, Coach JB Sheridan from Randolph Macon College. Uh, Coach Sheridan's this past 2020 season was his 10th year at Randolph Macon. Coach, you want to tell us a little bit about your background and what brought you to Randolph Macon?
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you guys having me. Kind of had a long relationship with the Roughriders since I've been down here. It's good to spend some time with you guys. I'm originally from Maryland, grew up in Germantown, Maryland, and ended up down at Salisbury with Tony, fortunately, and as a teammate, and got to know him pretty early in my career and played there. I ended up at Goucher after playing and coaching at Salisbury, and my head coach, his sister, actually went to Randolph Macon. And so when we played them the 2 years that I was at Goucher, I ended up going down scouting a couple live games because I was back in 2009, 2010 when getting DVDs and film wasn't that easy. It was a lot easier to just drive down 95 and watch a game. So I actually got to see the campus a good bit as an assistant. And that summer, after 2010, the job opened. And, I was at the very back end of my master's program at Goucher and kind of looking for the next piece. And in 2010, there really weren't a whole lot of D3 full-time assistants. So I was kind of looking at what was the next job I could move to. And I did look at a couple assistants, a couple D2, D3, D1 assistant spots to see what I could get my name in the hat for. And I was fortunate enough to get an interview at Randolph Macon, and I guess the rest is history. I've been here since, but it was a great place growing up around the Maryland, D.C. area. It was only 2 hours south, so I really liked that it was, not too far from where my family was. I felt that, seeing the campus and seeing the school and knowing where they could draw people, I knew I could still recruit Maryland really well and bring some kids down there. And then also it's about 15 minutes north of Richmond. So it's this really nice private school campus that had a lot of things in the blueprints in 2010, 2011 for the things that are here now. And so it just really was appealing to me that it was in the ODAC, great competition, the type of school that I felt like, I could be successful at, but also had the kind of pieces of the puzzle for me personally that I felt like I could be at home. It was a place that I could go and kind of really stay there and build a program.
Nice. So since you've been there, you've definitely helped lead a turnaround of that program. Like, what do you think those keys have been the past couple of years to help turn that program around? And you guys won 13 games last year, right? Program record.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly a process. I know when I got hired, I spoke with the AD, and he talked about timeline of like, how long do you think? I think any time an AD hires a new coach, they want to know, how long is it going to take you to win? And so, we talked about that, and I really felt like where the process was and building things and watching coaches like Coach Webby at Dickinson, Coach Kadelka at Lynchburg, and seeing how they built programs, and Coach Colfer, you guys just had on it at Cabrini. I really felt like, I needed to be prepared as a young coach to commit at least 8 years to that program before you really start to see everything that you work for, bringing in your own recruits, really starts to take shape in a more of a permanent way. You see some success early on, you change some things, but in a permanent way that's there every year. So I really felt like getting down there, we needed to make sure that we had guys that were ready to lift and train at the top of the ODAC level, and finding guys that were committed to that, not just when they were with us, but in the summers and the winter. So we really started working on finding guys that loved the game, that were committed to being competitive year round. And also guys that had really high level character. When we got to the school, I don't think we had necessarily a full roster of guys that were all committed all the time. And we needed to really build that up. And we took the GPA from a 2.19 when I got there all the way up to a 3.0. Wow. And that was part of it, because that also helped our retention. Guys were staying, guys were then developing into better players over 4 years, and we had the continuity that we needed from players. And then the next piece I thought was huge was we were able to add a full-time assistant about 5 years ago. And that commitment from the school really helped me, because it allowed me to have somebody there for multiple years. We've had Mike Sullinger's with us. He's a fantastic offensive coordinator. I mean, this year our offense was averaging almost 18 goals a game, shooting the ball 38%, number one in the country in assists. And him doing such a great job there allowed me to focus more on the defensive end of the field. And I think that really helped our program in the last 5 years have some consistency in the message our guys were getting, having consistency in the way we were playing, where my first couple of years we had a different assistant for 4 straight years.
Right.
So I think the combination of kind of the commitment from the school helping us get what we needed, but also being very strict in what we were willing to tolerate. We really, we knew what kind of guy we were going to get. We had to turn down some recruits that were talented because we knew their personality didn't fit what we needed. And I think that was sometimes maybe it cost us a couple games, but we were trying to look at the big picture. And over the last 4 years, we really started to see that pay off. So, I would say just kind of being a little bit more disciplined about what we expected out of our guys and holding everybody to that standard all the time, that started becoming contagious, that the players were at that standard all the time.
That's awesome. So what goes in for you as far as identifying a recruit outside of just seeing them at a camp or a tournament?
Well,
what all do you do?
I think the easiest thing is seeing them play. When you go to a tournament and you watch a guy play, you see a guy run, usually you can decide pretty quickly, if he, for certain positions, all right, does he have that speed that you're looking for? You look at a guy, does he have the size that you need at certain positions? And certainly there's a sound the ball makes when it hits the net. You can tell if a guy can shoot the ball at a certain speed that, okay, that's impressive. But I think, when it came down to recruiting, we also needed to rely on the coaches that we knew around the country and really spending time talking to club coaches. I don't know how many times I've reached out to you, Tony, in the last several years and saying, okay, and we talked lacrosse briefly, and then say, all right, what's he like off the field? What's he like at practice? What's he like personality-wise? And so we've really tried to make sure we're getting to know as many club coaches and high school coaches as possible, so that way when we see a guy and we aren't impressed by his play, we can go check the boxes off to make sure he is the type of person that's going to fit our program. Is this going to be a guy that academically is going to be committed the way we want him to? Is he going to be committed in the summer to making the decisions to go to the weight room and go run when other guys are going to hang out down on the bed? Whatever it may be, I think spending time with those coaches really helps. And then also getting those guys on campus and trying to connect with 2 different ways. One, us spending time with them and being very upfront about what we expect out of them. And I think that point of being direct and being honest and telling them exactly the way we do things here, that helps us. Because if a guy doesn't choose us, we know he didn't choose us knowing everything about us. And then the next thing is getting him around our players. And while guys are on campus to kind of learn about a school, we are also using our players to learn about them. See who they are when the coaches walk away. Are they that same kind of guy? Are they the kind of guy that our players want to have as a teammate? And so I think that just using those couple different levels to evaluate a person, and I think there's a lot we can teach in the game, but we want to make sure that we have the right people and the right mindset of the guys when they get here. Because I think, there's no doubt you want talented, fast, big, athletic, and strong and all those things. But usually when you have a pool of those guys, Roughriders always has a great pool of those guys. Once you get to college, it comes down to the intangibles of, are you willing to go to the gym by yourself on a Saturday to get extra reps in? Are you willing to get up early in the summer and go for a run when you have to go to work? So trying to figure that out and using people that we really trust to do that.
Cool. Thanks. So what's life like for a lacrosse player at RMC when you're in session, when the school is actually in and everything?
Well, I'd say it's probably like most programs, it depends on fall versus spring. At Division III school, we're allowed 16 practices in the fall. We really do believe in our guys having an off season. Guys may want to enjoy the aspects of college life. So typically we go fall ball for maybe about September 10th till the first weekend of October. So we're going Tuesday through Saturday. We'll have 4 practices during that time span. Any lifting or any practices are always between Tuesday and Saturday. We try to make sure that in the fall, our guys always have Sunday and Monday off. if they want to go, anything from going and watching football on Sunday to going home and seeing their family to getting their academic work finished up as they head into a new week. We want to make sure they have that chance to kind of hit the reset button each week and be rested. And when those 4 weeks are over, we just have strength and conditioning Tuesday through Friday mornings. We go 7 to 8 a.m. It's work for our program. It gets guys up. Our guys are never late for an 8 a.m. class. And so they're up, their blood's flowing. They're not, falling asleep as they walk into the door to a class. They've already been up for a little while. And the guys who don't have 8 a.m., they're eating breakfast together. So our guys then, without us even stepping foot on a practice field, they're spending time around each other. They're getting it. The young guys are getting to know the older guys quickly. What that also does is it gives guys all afternoons to take classes whenever they would like. They can go get tutoring. And then a big aspect for our guys in the fall and in the off season, they love to play intramurals, and if we're practicing at 5 or 6 o'clock at night on a Wednesday or Thursday, or even 7 o'clock at night, they can't play flag football. They can't play intramural basketball or floor hockey. And that's something our guys really like to do. And, we want to recruit guys who are active. I hate video games. All of our players know that about me. I don't know too many people in my life that can say they've seen me play video games. So we want guys that, on a Wednesday afternoon, they're going to go get a basketball and shoot hoops and find stuff to do. And so I think our schedule allows guys to have all afternoon during their week time to find time for that. We also have a big group of guys on our team that are tutors, so they can go do that or help another teammate just, get some work done, as well as also attend other games. So in the fall, we want our guys to have that ability to kind of enjoy the off-season factors of being a college student. We're right outside Richmond. We want them to be able to go check that out and have fun. And then the spring, I think it's not that different than, what guys experience. Honestly, it's not that different than high school in that we're kind of all in that 4 to 7 time frame in the afternoons. And it's not a 3-hour practice, but, maybe at 4 o'clock we got film, and then we're going to go out to the field at 4:30 and maybe go from 4:30 to 6:15. And you got to go in after practice and get some ice. So we're fortunate we have 2 lit turf fields on our campus. So we have that flexibility with practice that, both our men's and women's lacrosse teams now can practice at the same time versus one team having to wait and go a little bit later. And in the spring, we don't do anything in the morning. We make sure our guys, maybe you're getting a little bit more sleep. They have that flexibility to move classes earlier, so that way they don't have to worry about classes going a little bit later in the day. But we also make sure to move our practice schedule so guys don't have to worry about, they would never have to miss class for a practice. So we try to do our best to be flexible with that, to kind of have the balance between the fall and the spring.
So what time do you guys normally practice in the fall?
In the fall, we usually do one day in the morning. We'll go 6 to 8 a.m. in the morning. And then, typically go in the evenings, on Fridays. We go in the evenings, and we actually are fortunate on Thursdays at Randolph Macon, Tuesdays and Thursdays at Randolph Macon. There's no classes from 11:30 till I think it's 1. And so we actually practice, and we do a little bit shorter practice on a Thursday, but we go in the middle of the day. And so it's a little bit different.
That's cool.
Some schools have, but it's actually really good. Our guys have great energy at it. They're up, they're wide awake. And what guys will do is, if we're at 11:30 and a guy's maybe coming and getting out of that class at 11:20, he gets out of practice, gets warmed up when he gets there, and then maybe he doesn't have a class after, so he'll stay and shoot a little bit extra because, maybe he missed a couple minutes at the beginning. Or the guys that got there a little earlier, they might have to run to a class right away. So they run, grab a shower, and head there. So I think that helps us. And then we go, usually Friday evenings, maybe about 6 to 7:30, 6 to 8. And then sometime on Saturday, typically like 10 a.m. So I think the overall expectation for our guys is, how do you spend 2 hours a day to be a better lacrosse player when we're out of season, whether that's fall ball or whether that's summer? And then in season, how do you find the time for an edge workout for an extra 30 minutes a day, 4 days a week? You're putting in some extra time shooting, film, playing basketball, whatever it may be.
Gotcha. Awesome. Now, question that I had from one of the parents before was, what types of supports do the kids have, and what qualifies a kid as a full-time student? So how many credit hours does he need to take?
So for most students, 12 credit hours is going to be full time,
How
which
many
is
classes is that?
that's typically 4 classes. Unless you're pre-med, that could potentially be 3 labs, which does happen. And I promise you, those 3 labs are a whole lot harder than the 4 classes some guys.
Right.
But 12 credit hours, and the only time you're dropping below 12 credit hours is senior year. In the spring of your senior year, if you are ahead, you only need to take the amount of credits that you need to graduate. So because we have J term, or maybe somebody decided to stay in Ashland and take a summer class, they could be ahead in their spring semester. They might only need to take 2 or 3 classes. So that's the only time where they'd be a little less. But because we have J term, which is a 1-month class in the month of January, some of our guys, might pick 1 or 2 falls of their career and take a heavier course load. There's a little less going on, so they might take 15 credits, or maybe they're taking 14 credits because they got 2 labs, whatever it may be. So there's guys that'll do that, and then they take 1 class in the winter, and then that allows them to make sure they're only taking 4 classes in the spring, and they still are always on time to graduate. And that would be even without a summer schedule.
Wow.
So I hope that kind of answers.
Yeah. And then the other question was, what kind of supports do the kids have? Like, do you guys do like a study hall?
So actually, I've never been a big fan of study hall. Just not to scare people away, but academically, I think guys are supposed to be here to help become independent thinkers and manage their own time. And so I've been very adamant about helping guys develop those time management skills. And I've never felt like study hall helps that. Study hall is us telling you how to manage your time. And so we actually don't do study hall. We meet with our freshmen every 2 weeks. And then after your freshman year, it's based on your GPA. So if you're doing really well, again, we want you to keep managing your time well and be on your own, and we'll check in. If you're having some trouble, we're going to check in on you a little bit more. But
meeting with you a lot.
Yeah, probably. There might be a couple, but we usually see that as they get in their sophomore year, guys really start to figure it out, and they kind of able to I guess they leave the nest and they start to be able to do their own thing. But those meetings every other Monday are purely academic. We're checking guys' grades. They come in, they pull up their laptops, and we're able to see what assignments they're getting back, what they have coming up. We can also check with the tutoring center, which is a free service on campus for any student. We have free tutoring and mentoring. So if we see that a guy's doing poorly in a class, he's required to go get tutoring. Well, then when he comes in for his next meeting, we're able to see how many times he went into the tutoring center. And all that's online, which is great for us to see. So there's really no secrets there. If a guy's going to say, hey, I went to a tutor 3 times, and then we pull that up, it's a receipt. Shows us, hey, you only went once. What's going on? So we're able to follow that. And then we also, every month, we get progress reports back on every one of our student athletes from all their professors. And that lets us know how's your attendance, your participation in class, what are your estimated grades. Sometimes it's September and, there aren't a lot of grades, but the teacher can say, hey, we haven't had a whole lot of big assignments, but they're doing well, they're engaged, nothing to worry about. Whereas, once you get in October, November, the teachers are able to give us an exact grade percentage. They're telling, hey, he's got a 78, got an exam next week, really got to do well to be able to bump himself up into the B range. But I do think between those, we're able to figure out what our guys need. Some guys we might figure out they need to just get a tutor that's helping them prepare better. Some guys, it might be more of a factor that they're not completing their homework as diligently as they should. So we just try to use those services to get guys into the right places on campus, and hope that they're learning how to manage their time and manage the resources that we have on campus with the free tutoring. The Writing Center edits any written assignment on campus for free. You can bring it in person, or you can email it to them. They get it back to you in 24 hours. So those are all those resources that are there. It's just getting guys to kind of not be stubborn and say, hey, I don't need to do this on my own. You're not proving anybody that you're any tougher because you try to do it on your own. You have the resources, go use them. So I think it's all there. It's just trying to make sure guys, each person's a little different, and they're using what they have in front of them wisely.
Cool. So going into like the 20, well, now coming out of the 2020 season, what was the end of the season like for you guys? Like how did you find out? How did that all go? I know we're changing gears here a little
Yeah,
bit, but
it's more fun talking about lacrosse than it is the study habit
yeah,
of
absolutely.
all of our guys. But it's a tough question. How the season ended was you can't help but be upset. Um,
Mhm.
and everybody was still hungry to keep playing, but you also had this sense that you weren't alone, that we weren't special. We weren't like the only
Mhm.
team in Division Three just had lacrosse pulled out from under us. So you're trying to keep that big picture of there's a
Right.
lot of people that are going through things, and there's a lot of people going through worse things than missing lacrosse. So just trying to keep things in perspective. It was tough though because I think our guys, we were having a great year. We were 7-0, and I think we've continued to try to keep the mindset. We felt pretty fortunate the way at the end there, even though things ended, we weren't sitting in this position where we left meat on the bone, where we wish we had done something different. We were fortunate we were able to win all 7 of our games, and we had some really fun, exciting games, and I think having a little bit of the heads up the weekend going into, I guess it was probably somewhere around like March 7th or 8th, that
Yeah.
we played that Saturday. We had a great um, home game. We won. It was gorgeous weather. It was awesome. A lot of families in town. And then we started kind of hearing rumblings of lacrosse might be going on a little bit of a hiatus. And
Right.
so we talked about that with our guys. And I actually remember on Monday that week, we didn't have that great of a practice. And we kind of went into the locker room and just had a chat about, um, if we go on this pause and not knowing how long this pause was going to be, how do we want to feel when we do this? And so we kind of just really focused on that. And we were fortunate. We went up to St. Mary's that Wednesday night, and they're a great team. And we knew it was going to be a battle, and it was for all 60 minutes. And, we were down 11-8 at half. Not our best first half. And then we kind of made some adjustments at halftime. But our guys, the energy was there. They knew what was on the line. They knew that their time together could be limited. So they were super pumped what we were doing. And we were able to come back and win. And I think our guys felt really fortunate that even though things ended, everyone was upset. Everyone had that memory of winning an awesome game, came back, won 17-14, spending time on the bus. And I just think that helped a little bit because we just felt like even though we still had plenty more things we wanted to do, we really enjoyed our time together, made the best of what we had. So it certainly was tough though.
So was that your last time together? Was that St. Mary's game?
Uh, it actually wasn't our last time together. It was our last game. And
Yeah.
so the next day, I guess that actually during that day of Wednesday before the St. Mary's game, before we had left, because it was a night game, so we weren't leaving till later in the day. We had heard from some teams. One of the teams that was supposed to come down on spring break canceled, so we knew we weren't going to have a midweek game the following week. And then we talked to Randolph's coach, Andy Sinclair, and he was like, hey, we're all being sent home Saturday. And it looked like Randolph Macon was kind of heading the same direction. But both schools at that time said, hey, if you want to play, you can play your last game Saturday. And we were planning on doing a senior day for both teams.
Okay.
And just kind of something to honor all the seniors because no one knew if the things were going to continue. And then the NCAA announced right before practice that Thursday that they were canceling all championships. And I think that was pretty tough because we're sitting in the locker room, we're talking, our AD joined us, and we kind of broke the news to the guys. And I think that was a pretty tough thing. It was pretty emotional. We had 16 seniors. A lot of guys who invested a great deal in our program. And so we knew we weren't playing that Saturday, and guys just asked if we could just go play. And so we just went out, and we'd had these set of scrimmage teams. We've been playing kind of a best of 7 series lately. And we just they didn't even need a roster. They knew which team they were on, brought the speaker out to the field, and we just went out and played for like an hour and a half. And it was awesome.
Yeah.
But that was our last time on the field together. And then Friday we got the final news, and we just had a nice big team meal that afternoon before everybody went home, and feel pretty fortunate we were able to do that. Just to be able to, we didn't talk lacrosse. We just hung out, and we're lucky that one of our captain's parents lives about 10 minutes off campus. They had us over there. Guys were playing cornhole, basketball in the driveway, throwing football around. Got a bunch of steak rolls and some spaghetti and pizzas, and just hung out. And I think that was, again, a nice way that our guys knew we got to spend time together, knowing, hey, we might not get to see each other for a while. So that was tough, but it was also, I feel pretty fortunate that we got to have that.
That's awesome. Well, considering the circumstances, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was though.
Yeah. What have you guys been able to do to, keep in touch with your team?
We're doing of course, doing Zoom calls and doing things like that we've tried to create agendas for our Zoom calls. So when we get on there, we usually have kind of a Randolph Macon history lesson. I usually share something from a game before a lot of our guys got there, a story of how a quarter went or a play or a game, and just kind of help these guys learn about some of our alumni. And some of the guys, who are seniors, they were part of that game as a freshman, maybe, depending on the year that we're telling them. We also check in kind of academics, and, if there's a timeline or something, hey, this is a date, make sure this is coming up, you're ready for that. So we cover some kind of business things as well, I guess, as a team. And then we usually kind of spend 5 minutes, everybody's kind of like catching up, letting guys know what they're doing. So we were doing that, and we still have pretty regularly, but then we also decided to break up into smaller groups, and we divided our whole roster up. And so we could kind of do some smaller groups where guys could hang out and also kind of check in on each other, share workouts, see how guys are doing. Because the one thing that's tough is when you got, 45 guys on a Zoom call, you don't want anybody feeling like they're getting lost, but it's a lot of people on the screen. So we thought, if guys, you're in a call with only 7 or 8 people, everybody kind of gets to share how they're feeling a little bit more, to talk about what they're doing or ask questions to the older guys. And that was important for us to also make sure that these younger guys who just lost half of their freshman year didn't lose that time of mentorship with the older guys. I think, Tony, I remember learning from you and the guys that we were fortunate enough to have that were older than us when we were in college. During those later months of the season, you spend a lot of time with those guys, and you're watching them and you're learning from them. We didn't want our guys to lose that. And then we had to get creative about, what kind of workouts guys could do and make sure we're sending out some challenges. And we've just tried to make sure that we keep in touch, and we got different group texts going on with positions and years. But that's been pretty good, just trying to make sure that we're spending time talking with each other and just checking in on everybody.
Right. Keeping everyone engaged with the program.
Yeah, for sure.
So what's going on with fifth years? Do you have many kids coming back for next year that should be graduating?
So we're pretty lucky, for when this happened, and we had a huge class. But Randolph Macon doesn't have graduate school, so that does make it tough to get guys. There's no post-grad degree that they can come back and get right now. So we are fortunate that 3 guys decided to extend their undergraduate and add minors and decide to join us. 2 of them are local guys, and so that was a pretty easy transition for them to figure out, because they knew they could either live at their parents or wherever some places they were looking to live after graduation this spring. They're still not that far away, and they can come back. So they decided that they're going to do that, which means they won't take class in the fall, and they'll come back in the spring. And we're really lucky. One of those guys was leading our team, and I think he was 3rd in the country in points at this ended. So he had 42 points. The other guy was, as a junior, was already an All-American D-Midi, and was a kind of just a vacuum on the wings and a great in transition. Both were captains. And then the third is a guy who's actually from Annapolis, and his brother is in our 2020 class, and they never got to play with each other in high school. And so, he said he was actually already accepted into a police academy, but that police academy, that county, was on a hiring freeze. So he wasn't able to graduate and go into the academy yet either. So he added a minor, and he's going to come back and play with his younger brother next year. So 3 pretty cool opportunities. The 2 guys that are local, I've coached them since they were 12 years old. So I feel really lucky to have those guys back that, I just feel like we've spent so much of our life in the lacrosse world together. it's great to have these guys for next year. And I know Camden's another guy who's first team All ODAC in 2019. So getting some pretty good guys back there are going to help us, maybe soften the blow of a 16-man senior class graduating.
Yeah, wow. Wow, that's crazy. Is this changing anything as far as recruiting goes? I know we were talking before about like the junior class is going to – because you have a pretty big junior class as well, right? The 2021 class?
Yeah, there'll be a big they're going to be juniors. Our sophomore class now is a bigger class. So, I think it maybe for other teams it did in terms of 2021s, but our 2021 graduating class is not the biggest class. So we weren't planning on bringing in a huge 2021 class from high school either. So that didn't change our numbers. We've had a really good group of guys that we've gotten to know really well over the last year. We had a junior day in the fall, brought some guys back for visits early in the spring. Now, some of those guys did miss kind of their opportunity to come back and see a game, which is unfortunate. But we do feel like we have a good thing started with our juniors that we hope it doesn't change that class too much. But we've had to get really creative with helping them learn more about Randolph-Macon. They've spent time on Zoom calls with current players on our team. They're connecting, with those guys so that way they can get to know them the way they would if they came back for a game in the spring. But I think we are in that point right now where we're trying to figure out whether guys will maybe start making a decision because they've gotten to know us, or they want to wait and see what happens in this camp and tournament sequence. Do they get to play in some things in July or August? And maybe they see what other options, they want to see, hey, do I get a chance to maybe broaden my list of schools a little bit and then narrow it down? And maybe they're a little bit more patient. So I think we've also had to be a little bit more creative of getting to know coaches and the players a little bit better, and even watching high school basketball tapes, high school football tapes. I know Coach Colfer, you guys talked about that, is you gotta kind of broaden your web a little bit to figure out how else can you see if a guy's talented. But I also think in other ways we've gotten to know recruits more than we ever have because we've spent time on Zoom calls with them throughout this whole spring.
That's cool. And then those kids that are underclassmen at Randolph Macon right now, they have that opportunity to get an extra year too, correct?
They do. So that's where we're having a couple conversations right now. It still might be a little bit early for guys to totally figure that out, but it's certainly something that it's going to impact where we go with the 22 class and 23 class is these guys that are with us now that, as I mentioned, we've got, Roughrider Andrew Tiffy's, playing for us now. And he was having a heck of a sophomore campaign, but he's coming back this fall and still has 3 years of eligibility left. And so we've got to talk to those guys that are returning for their junior year and their sophomore year and say, how many of you guys potentially want to stay for a fifth year? Or how many of you, with enough notice that you have now that you're going to have this year of eligibility, do you want to just plan on pursuing grad school, down the road? Because I think if we figure out those numbers, or at least a ballpark of those numbers, that'll help us gauge our recruiting numbers for the 2021 team. Not as much 2021, 2022 class, 2023 class. So that way we're still kind of keeping the numbers that we want.
That makes sense. So what's your typical timeline for recruits? Like, when do you start looking at the different grad years?
So right now, we spent, all of last summer watching 2020s and 2021s and kind of making our list of 2020s that, hey, we got to call these guys immediately. And then the 2021s, we kind of were making our side list and say, okay, these guys, we got to get on campus right away. These are the kind of next tier guys that maybe a little bit later, once we finish the 2020 class, we'll contact. But I'd say usually we are done with our recruiting by about November of a class's senior year. This year, I think the last couple guys were, right around Thanksgiving, early December were the last couple, but they had already, told us, said, hey, this is why, I'm going to finish football and then I'm going to come down for my visit and then I'm going to make my decision. So just those couple guys we're working with, but typically we're done recruiting by late October and early November. Now, I'm not sure whether this year will remain the same, but I do think we've always tried to make sure we had enough juniors that in the spring of their junior year, we've had a great group of guys that we've really gotten to know and watch play, that summer as they head into their senior year, we've already seen their grades. We've already known where they fit academically in the picture. And then it's kind of them having more time to make their decision. Because I've never been a big person to pressure guys. We want to let guys know, hey, we have a spot for you. We want you to take the time you need to make that decision. So that probably makes us a little bit later than some schools. But I still think the academic kind of guidelines we follow of getting guys in to apply early action still helps us not get too late in the process.
Gotcha. So right now, obviously, it's different because of COVID and everything. But in general, if someone's trying to get on your radar, what's the best way what's the best way to send you an email? What information should they be including in that email? Should they call the lacrosse office? What's the best way to be noticed by you?
So I think, of course, the email, that whole side of things, you just really want guys to take their time and develop a good email. It doesn't have to be 2 pages long. It just has to have all the information. It's got to hopefully maybe say something about Randolph Macon, because sometimes you can tell and it's just like, it's not addressed to anybody. And you're like, okay, how many letters did you just send out? And do you even know what we are? And you can tell the difference between a letter that comes from, almost like a recruiting service. Not that you shouldn't use them, but you want to make sure that if this is a coach you want to be on his radar, he needs to hear from you personally. And so I think that personal touch is always important. But, we need to know grades. And don't give us a ballpark. If you got a certain GPA, just tell us what it is. If you have SATs or PSATs, that's great. Let us know those. I really do. I know some coaches, won't make a decision on film, but I do think film is important. Even if it's, 30 or 40 seconds long, it's something. Let us know your club or high school coach's contact information. As I mentioned, we try to make a connection with those guys right away. If I watch somebody play, the first thing I want to do is call somebody and learn more about them. And then include your cell. So if we're able to get your cell, I think email is great, but when there's a guy that I want to get in touch with, I'm going to text him right away or call him right away and say, I'm not wasting time with an email, especially the way guys are so good at responding to texts. We try to do more in that realm because I think guys are comfortable with that. A lot of 16-year-olds aren't checking their email every day.
Oh, I know.
So, if you contact me via email and I email you back, sometimes guys don't read it for a while. So I usually, if I get an email and has their text message or their cell phone number in there, that's usually the way I reach back out to them. So whatever you do include, know that that's how that coach is going to reach back out to you. Mm-hmm. But I just think another good thing is take time to go see a school, because that jumps off the page is when a kid says, hey, I drove down and checked out your school last summer and I really like the campus. And I think that's a place I'm interested in. So I think those couple things really help. Again, it's just more of a personal feel. So if we can have a couple things that help us connect to you and connect to the people that you spend time around, that really helps.
I gotcha. That makes sense. So when they send you a film, you think if they were sent a highlights, would you rather see a highlights or would you rather see a full game? What's your preference?
I think seeing some continuation of plays, full game is tough, because it's hard to just sift through that. But not everything has to be a highlight. Obviously nobody wants to send a low light, but you want to see some continuations of plays. You want to see a guy misses a shot, goalie makes a save, but then he turns and books it and gets back in the hole. And you can still see, hey, this is just he's not making a big play, but he's trying to make the smart play. And I just don't think you need a whole lot of the slow-mo things. Highlights for entertainment purposes. Add your slow-mo, your screen graphics, all the stuff you want, but we want to see things in real time. Make sure someone just identifies who you are, and then let us hit the pause button if we need to. Let us rewind and watch some things again. So I just think simple. can be a little bit better. And just hopefully that the film is something that you can really see quality-wise. Sometimes if it's shot from the ground level, it's tough to see. But then you got different positions, goalies, face-off guys that, see in a duration of a game. Don't just put in the face-offs you won. Put in face-offs of you losing, and hey, you chased the guy down, you got in the hole, you played some good defense. Again, just kind of covers a little bit of both.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's good. That makes sense. As far as for me, I don't think I have any other questions. But I know we have a few non-video participants, some parents and some players. Do you got Coach Schultz? Does anyone have any other questions for Coach Sheridan?
Hey, Coach, the only thing I'd ask you is just those guys that you would want to recruit, that type of guy, what would he be doing right now during the break, developing as a high school kid? We talked about like the emails that they should be sending and stuff, but their day-to-day, what would you recommend they do to, when we do get to play lacrosse again, be ready to go?
Yeah, I think that's probably one of the most important things going on right now. I know that's one of the most important things we're spending time with our players on. And I think the common phrase our guys hear, something that Tony's probably heard plenty of times before. I heard it when I was younger. Is what are you doing 2 hours a day to be a better lacrosse player? I mean, guys, you have time. You have all this time that I know we wish we were spending doing something else, but you have time nonetheless. Everybody has more time in their day than we've ever had and will ever have again. So we've been talking to guys, hey, if you show up this fall out of shape, shame on you. I mean, that's kind of it's always unacceptable, but it's more reached the line of embarrassing that what else you got? I mean, you got shoes on your feet, go out and run. We expect all of our guys to have a pull-up bar in their house. We tell all of our guys as soon as they commit, you should go buy a pull-up bar. That's something, and when you decide to come to Randolph Macon, like, you should have a pull-up bar in your house, because that way, and if you have one that attaches to a door, it can be nice, because if you go somewhere for a while, you're going on vacation, you can bring it with you. And you can always get a good workout in doing some push-ups, pull-ups, but thinking about how are you spending 2 hours a day right now, at least, 6 days a week to be a better lacrosse player. And not everybody has the same resources. And that's why we completely added a whole new section to our summer workout packet of all workouts that require no weights, because we realize that guys aren't all going to have that. So I would say, if you don't have a goal, if you're a guy that's used to going up to, Marriott's Ridge and shooting, and the goals are always out on the turf, but now it's a public school, they're closing all that stuff, the goals are locked up, and you can't do that, okay, well, then that should triple the amount of time you spend on the wall. Mm-hmm. And you should be running, push-ups, pull-ups, whatever you have that you can add to your fitness. You should be really committing to that. And it's not easy. Everybody's kind of getting tired of these home workouts, and everybody has different things. But at the end of this, the cream is still going to rise to the top. Whenever we go back, there's going to be the guys that worked hard during this time, and there's going to be the people that didn't. And it's going to be obvious, and those guys are going to have more opportunities, whether that's more opportunities when they get recruited or more opportunities at the school they show up at that they already are part of this fall. And I think that's something that is just going to be apparent. And you can't say, oh, well, I didn't have this, because you know what? There's going to be some other kid that didn't have a home gym built in his, basement, and still showed up fit with a good set of stick skills and got stronger and got better. And then I'd say the next piece is, because, there's nobody that's having a shortage of screen time right now, is what are you watching? Everybody loves Netflix and watching these things, but I still multiple times a week just turn on full lacrosse games and watch games. And that's something that when I was 18, somebody gave me the 2002 national semifinal game between Syracuse and UVA. And I've gone through at least 3 copies of that game, from VHS to multiple DVDs. So they've gotten scratched up over the year. Everyone in our program knows that game. Some by choice, some I maybe, force fed them a little bit with it. But I share with them because it's a game that if you go watch a game once, you should be able to go watch it again and learn more things. And see, it's like a good book. The more you watch it, you see something else. And that's just going to help your lacrosse IQ that might make up for you're not out on a field every day. You're not playing summer lacrosse, 5-6 days a week. But you can be fit and you can be improving your lacrosse IQ. And then the last piece, our guys have summer reading every year. From your freshman year to your senior year, we have a library of books our guys read. And I would just challenge guys, find something, get it on Audible, read it, whatever it might be, but just find ways to improve yourself and not waste the time that you have, because we're gonna get back to school and everyone's gonna all of a sudden be saying, man, I wish I had all that free time that I had before. So at least make the best of the time that you do have now.
What's on the summer reading list? Like, what are the books?
Ooh, so our freshmen start off with a couple. I know I should be able to rattle this off because it's just not in front of me. But one of the best ones our freshmen read is "Make Your Bed" by General McCraven. That's a great book. Another one is "I Am Third." It's about the story of Brian Piccolo and Gail Sayers. We also have "Win in the Locker Room First," a book called "Fearless." It's about a guy that eventually became a Navy SEAL, but battled a lot of tough situations his whole life and had to overcome some things that he put himself in some tough situations. Just a great read. What else do we got on there? We actually have a movie I really like that I think is good for guys. It's called Jeff Bridges. I think it's early 90s, called White Squall. It's just kind of about a group of guys that come together and learn how to work together despite their differences. So a couple of those. And then I think some great books that we have for our older guys are more leadership based. We have Culture Code, and then we have the book Legacy. Legacy is about the New Zealand All Blacks rugby team. I mean, just the epitome of a fantastic team and program. I think that's great. And then Jocko Willing's 2 books, Extreme Ownership, and he's got another one, kind of the dichotomies of leadership. And just, I'd say that's probably about 8 of our 10. I'm probably missing one. I know the Hard Hat's in there too. What?
So you're pretty well off the top of your head.
Yeah, sorry. I should know those better, but we break those up by class, and so that way the freshmen are learning kind of the key, foundational elements that we want them to learn, and then it builds up that our seniors are kind of wrapping up as they go to graduate, and some things. Culture Code's all about just how to, what great programs have that help people be successful for our seniors to learn as they head into a different chapter of their life.
So going back to what you're talking about, conditioning and training, do you do a conditioning test and strength training test?
We do. I think this fall, I've constantly been thinking about how we will approach that this fall. I think a lot of it's going to be gauged on, maybe giving our guys some time to evaluate where they are when they come back. I know our run test will not change. That's for sure, because there's no excuse for that. Our run test is a 300-yard shuttle. It's in 30-yard increments. And in the fall, all 3 of your times have to be under 60 seconds. And then in the spring, your average has to be, it drops down to, I think, 58 seconds. And so, it's kind of coming in the fall, and then we hope to ramp things up as we get into spring, get you in a little bit better shape. Our bench tests, bench your body weight 10 times. Squat your body weight plus 25% 10 times. You got to be able to do 15 pull-ups, and you got to be able to do, 25 dips? Yeah, so something you're familiar with. But, I think there's elements of that. Part of it has to do with guys' maturity, physically developing, that can make some things a little bit harder. We understand that, but we still want to see growth and improvement. And then the run tests, we tell guys every year, there's not a single person that we recruited that can't pass that run test. And, you might pass one pretty easily, but it's tough when you got to run the second and the third one. So it's just making sure you're making time to do that. You can go out on a basketball court, you can go out on a field and walk off 30 yards and do that pretty easily. But I think those things are pretty good foundation for gauging where you are in the fitness world.
So you do that 300-yard shuttle. How much time do you give the kids in between each?
You get 3 minutes rest.
Okay.
And so 3 minutes sounds like a long time, and then it isn't. It passes by pretty quick. But I think one thing we also gauge with that is also talking to our guys, because there's plenty of guys that are really fast, but you're able to see your fitness level on where your splits are. Your first one, if you're a guy that comes out of the gates too fast and you go run a 52, and then all of a sudden your next one's a 59. Well, because you had a 7-second drop, we know your third one, you're doomed. You're going to drop even further. Whereas we like to see the guy that runs the 53, the 55, the 57. That's showing your fitness is pretty consistent. You didn't just come out of the gates and just try to just show that you're the fastest guy on the team. That's good if you are, but if you can only be the fastest guy on the team in the first quarter, it's not very useful. So just getting guys to say, hey, you should try to have definitely no more than a 4-second gap. We prefer to be 3 seconds or less between any of your times. Kind of shows that you're capable of running at your best speed consistently after a little bit of rest.
Awesome. Well, that for me, that you covered just about everything. You covered everything. Everything else. Coach Schultz, anyone else that's listening in? Any questions?
Yeah, I had 2 more come in through the text. One, how many guys do you try and take in a class under normal circumstances, of course, in a recruiting class? And then the second being, when you're recruiting goalies, how do you normally handle that? And is there anything specific you're looking for in a goalie? And also, do you stagger what years you recruit goalies?
So typically, I would say the number we're looking at is, if I had to pick a number, is 14. Sometimes that number goes higher, but 14 is kind of like the ideal number. This year we brought in a bigger class. This year our 2020 class is 20 guys because we were graduating 16 seniors. It's just a massive group of guys. They were a big class as a freshman because we were at that time trying to improve our talent level and trying to build our roster up 4 years ago. We were trying to get up a little bit higher from where we had been. But as I mentioned, our 2021 class is going to be smaller. We're looking to bring in about 10 or 11 guys in that class. So that's going to be a little bit smaller. But typically that 14 range, and you're gauging that where, I guess if you had three attackmen, 3 defenders and 3 midfielders, you're at 9 there. And then you throw a goalie, a faceoff guy, and an LSM and a D midi, you're kind of right there. Goalie position is always tough. That's always a situation that each year, you're kind of on that line where, you don't want to have too many goalies, but you definitely don't want to have too few. And then you're in a tough position, if a guy has an injury or something like that. This year we happened to bring in 2 2020 goalies, and we were very upfront with them. They both knew it. It was something we told them from the start. But we also made the commitment to them, that our plan was to not bring a 2021 goalie in. And so that was something that we made sure that we were upfront with them. Typically you have a goalie a class. That's ideal, but if you lose one of those goalies and you're down to 3 and a guy's graduating, and then that's kind of what happened is, where we felt like we needed to bring in 2 to kind of get back. And as far as goalies, looking at them, I'm not, Charlie Toomey played goalie my whole life, and kind of, I feel like I've worked with goalies for a long time. I take a lot of pride in working with our goalies individually and helping them develop. But I really like athletic goalies. The guy that was an all-conference goalie for us in 2019, he played football and lacrosse at Ridgewood up in New Jersey. He was an athletic guy. He allowed us to 10-man. Our goalies that we have now allow us to 10-man. They are athletic. They come out. They run the same run test that everybody else runs. They do the same wall test. That's also what I forgot as part of our fitness test is a wall test. And one piece about that is if you don't pass our wall test or our run test, you don't practice until you do. And we were very adamant about, that's kind of one of those standards that we hold guys to. And so goalies know that we have those same expectations. That you need to have good stick skills. You need to be able to run. You need to be able to be fit and make time for that. You can't just be a guy that just wants to stand in the cage and yell at people. That's kind of not how we do things. So I hope that helps. But, I think goalies all have different styles. And I think when we look at our goalies is we try not to, while we want them to be athletic, I think there's a strength to bringing in maybe a goalie that's different than some of the other goalies you have. So you have a couple different guys that you can see, and maybe one of them is better in a zone. If that's what you're playing that year, that guy might be able to help you a little bit more.
Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Hope that helps.
Did you have another one, KR?
No, those were it. That was it.
Cool.
All right.
So what's the wall test?
Wall test it's 250 throws. So each element is 25 right, 25 left. And we have a time limit. So the shorties, I think anybody with a short stick is under, I think 6.5 minutes. And then I think we give an extra 30 seconds for any poles or goalies. And so it's pretty simple, but it's one of those things that I think has really helped our guys learn how to hit the wall, because so many guys are like, yeah, I played wall ball, but they didn't really get after it. They didn't break a sweat.
Mm-hmm.
Where our wall test is 25 quick sticks, 25 right and left quick sticks, 25 right and left, one cradle and out, 25 catch and throw cross hand, and 25 one hand, and 25 catch and switch hands. And, you really can see the guys that commit to that. And I do think the strength piece of it is a factor. You see guys that are a little bit stronger, when you're throwing those one-arm passes and you haven't spent time in the weight room, and guys who haven't spent time in the weight room, their shoulders start to fatigue in that test. But it's a great thing that guys can see improvement. One of the workouts we like during the summer for our guys, also a Murph test, which is a great one. But both of those, they're time-based. And so say you start the summer with a Murph at 50 minutes, well, that's where you are. It's like the wall test. If you're at 8 minutes the first time you do it, well, okay, well, maybe Tuesday you drop down to 7:40 and you just keep working your way down. And so you're able to see individual growth. And for right now, that's something that really probably helps guys.
I have a neighbor that's coming down there in the fall to play for you, and he was very excited about the Murph tests. He really enjoys them.
Yeah, that's one of those ones that I think that's a rude awakening for anybody who hasn't done that. That's not our fitness test, but it's certainly something that gets thrown into some of the workouts every once in a while.
That's awesome. Well, great, man. I really appreciate it. Thanks for taking the time with us.
I appreciate you guys having me. The Rough Rider program has always been great. We've always recruited from the Rough Rider teams, and we've had great groups of players, from individuals to siblings, coming down and joining us. And I think it's something that those guys coming out of a program like Rough Riders, that they're used to being competitive. They're used to being out on a field to win games, but they love the game, and they also usually have a good IQ for the game. And I think that's something we've really enjoyed. Those guys have came down and done very well for us.
Appreciate it, man. Coach Schultz here was probably like our longest tenured Rough Rider coach in the program, outside of Coach Gordon.
Yeah, since 2009.
I think we're adding to your staff. We keep having guys go work for you guys every summer.
Yep. Well, awesome, man. Thanks a lot. Parents, anything else? I think we're good. Coach Sheridan, good luck. I'm sure we'll talk soon.
Hopefully we'll all be back on the sidelines again soon. Wish everybody the best and enjoy your summers.